we're going to have a look at Algo's Intuiflow software, and in particular, materials planning in the materials planning suite. This particular piece of software not only allows you to plan material manufacture, but also it's mainly used for supply planners, those who work with suppliers in order to determine what needs to be ordered on a regular basis. So it's basically your ordering tool, a supply planning. Now let's have a look at some actual examples within the system. Let's dive into the Intuiflow system here and have a look at a demo site. So we have here the Intuiflow menus on the left. We'll be covering off materials planning today. We have also covered off demand planning and sales and operations planning in another recording. And we also have a scheduling and execution module if you're a manufacturer and you have things like production lines that need to be resourced, and you work through how your scheduling will work for manufacture. What we also have here is your sites or your locations. So at the moment, I've selected 3 fictional sites here, demo plants and such. So your individual distribution centers would be listed down here as separate locations, because obviously we're calculating the demand and the need for orders at each location. When you log in, you can see some sort of standard menu items for login, etc. Multiple languages are available. And then we have some other areas we can click on in a minute, which I'll take you through. But the main thing is, when you log on in the morning, if you're a supply planner, you want to understand, what is important? What do I need to action straight away today that'll enable me to ensure I have no out of stocks and my customers are happy? And so what do I need to order? And what is coming up on the horizon that is an issue? So that's where we have these 3 sections here. 1, 2, 3, planning, priorities, execution alerts, and work orders that take us through what's important. The work order section is really more around the scheduling execution, so we can omit that for this time being. The planning priorities is the key area that we want to cover off initially. So this tells me straight away that in terms of my items that I'm looking at, I have some items that are critical priorities, and that really means that these items are nearly out of stock or out of stock. They're in that 50% of the bottom of that red zone. So if you remember the previous slide with the red zone, you're at a point in your net flow where you are in that red zone. That's sort of a critical piece. Yeah. In the high items, they're in the rest of the red zone. And then the medium items are in the yellow zone. And obviously you have non-buffered items where you just need to order them. So really anything in these zones here need to be ordered. Any items in this to be ordered. This low zone tells you that you've got items that are in the green zone. So they're perfect. They're sitting in that great level of that buffer. And OTOG means over the top of green. So you've got some opportunity to have a look at these 89 items that may be overstocked. They may be overstocked for a reason, but they are ones you might want to look at as well. And then we've got execution alerts here. And these execution alerts advise you of issues that may be coming up in the future and what you need to think about if you have inventory concerns. So in terms of those execution alerts, the key ones to take a look at is current inventory alerts. And that basically tells you if the inventory is out of stock or you're about to run low on particular items. Material synchronization is a view forward that tells you that they're not out of stock yet, but based on delays to orders or timing of stock that you had hoped was going to come at the right time, you have an item here that is actually now going to be a bit overdue and going to be late. And then you've got some items here that if you don't action, there is some future spike coming that may end up being out of stock in terms of a projection. But day to day, as you wake up and you have a look, what you'll be looking for initially is what I need to order. So from planning priorities, you can click into any of these boxes, or you can also click into your workbench. It gives you the same result. So if we click into our workbench here, we will see that we have all our items and our different locations. You can customize a view. So I've got my standard view here. And what this does is sort for me the critical items, exactly like you saw on that front page, the 2 criticals, the 4 highs and the mediums and low items. So only these items need to be ordered. Intuiflow knows this, and so it gives you a reorder quantity. And you can see here, this is what needs to be reordered for these products. What's great is you can actually see then what location they're at. So at the moment, this is only looking at needing to order within this plant. The other warehouses or the other locations are all okay in terms of their stock, so they don't need to be ordered. And we can customize these columns with a lot of information. So at the moment, I'm looking at which planner is in charge of these. So, I might be frank because I might only be looking at my priorities. I'm looking at the different items here. I've got what type of part they are and where they're from, and important information like what's there on hand. Do we have any issues with stock, which we do in a few of these. What order request dates do we need to put on there, and the reorder quantities, and things like the net flow, where that's sitting, and the different zones. So what we can do from here is actually quite simple. We can create an order right from here. If we tick this box right here, anything that needs an order in these exact quantities will be sent straight to your ERP and ordered at that point. So you're essentially following that sawtooth pattern, as I mentioned in the previous slide, where you're ordering in that green zone and getting that stock back up from anywhere it's critical and back into that green zone. But you can also have a look at, ordering and changing specific items and where they come from. So if I click into this item here, I can click into Manage Orders. And from there, I can see then, obviously, some of the key areas in here, the net flow, etc., our order recommendation here, our reorder quantity. So I can just click that and I can change that quite easily. We also have the ability here to optimize our load. So if we have multiple items here, we can optimize to a container quantity, etc. We can also do a couple of other things here. We can go to an alternate source. So if this particular part, FPA, has multiple vendors, we could hit a drop down here and pick from different vendors if we needed to. We can also, if we need to, we can set up transfer locations between your warehouses. So rather than ordering from the vendor, if there is a transfer location that you can bring stock from, you can change that to your other warehouse and get stock ordered from there. So you can manage those orders. Once you've saved those, you can submit them and they go to your ERP as well. Now, there are a couple of other things we can have a look at here in terms of how this operates and this screen. So as I said, we can have a look at the sorting of these. So as an example, let me first of all have a look at doing this by location. So if I have a look at locations here, I can just drag any of these headers into this here. And now I can see by location what my inventory is, how well I'm sitting here. So there's not a lot of problem in this location. I can click and, if I had the other location selected, it would show me what's in those locations as well. I can close that. And then I can also look at particular parts across different locations. So if I uncheck FPA, let me then have a look at my parts up here. And now I can see where I have multiple parts. And let me just make this a little larger because there are a few different locations here. I've just quickly zoomed down the list here and found where we have multiple items, right, that are in different locations. And you can see where, for instance, as an example, in this plant location, we have plenty of stock, but we're critical here. So this is one that you could easily transfer from. And it tells you, the total sum of orders required, the total sum of inventory across the both. So, you can have a look at your whole, network in terms of individual items as well. So that is a quick, brief look at what we call our workbench. Now I'm going to be looking at an individual item to take you through actually seeing how the buffers work and how the individual items are calculating. Okay, so let's first of all have a look at an item which has some customer demand against it and also incoming orders. So this item here, if I click into there, when we delve into an individual item, we have multiple tabs in here that give us a full background on the item, full visibility end to end, which allows you to manage right down to that item level. You can talk to your suppliers about. So you can see here right now we have an on hand of 15,000. There's no currently inventory on issue. And then we have this work order, which is basically an order, a supplier order. So you can see the running balance, or our net flow, is now increased to 26,000. And then we have a what's called a sales order demand, which is really a demand, basically, that we have to cover off. And you can see that's 1,400. So that reduces our net flow. So that basically shows you the system calculating, how that item ebbs and flows. If I take a look at another item, we can delve into a little bit more on the analytics of that item. So if I click into here and look at this item, this one here has a work order, but it has no sales orders. But the first thing we want to have a look at is, how that item has been created. And this is where it's important to understand that with Intuiflow, you can either use a forecast. So you can see here the system has a forecast for this item. So this is the forecasted daily sales for this item. It also has what we call an average daily usage, or the true demand. In other words, not the forecast, but what is the recent demand for that item. And you can see there that it is 2,800. So there's two numbers for the system to choose from. In this particular case, we are using the average daily usage, or the historical demand, if you like. And so that gives you an effective daily usage. But we actually have the ability, and the system can do this for you. It's a setting, and we can do it across all items if needed, or particular items. We can change that to forecast if needed. So you can really control how that item is. You can also have a look at things like, what is the buffer profile? This is a make part with a certain level of variability. You can change that. You can edit that in here. You can also look at the MOQs. So you can see there's a minimum order quantity of 2,700 and an order multiple, actually, which is the same, but that may be different for you. Each item will take that information from your ERP. The next thing to look at is the analytics, and that really shows us here how this item has trended over history. So at the moment, I've got a very short term. Let me just go and have a look at the last 2 years worth of history here. Actually, the last 1 year even, just to get that graph showing there. And we can see that you can see our three zones here nicely reflected over time. You can see that there is quite a lot of risk in this item. So the red zone is actually fairly high. The yellow item, which is the yellow line, which is the lead time times average daily usage, or forecasted usage, is actually fairly thin there. So that means that it is, has a pretty short lead time possibly for this item. And then the green zone is also not heavily influenced too much by a giant MOQ. You can see that ordering has occurred, the purple line, the net flow. Every time it is hit down to the bottom of green, we're sort of ordering back up to the top of green there. That's your sawtooth pattern, and that shows that this has been ordered fairly well. We can also see one instance here where in the past this item was out of stock. You can see the net flow really breached that green level there, and so it was out of stock for a period of time. You would have had an alert for that, obviously, as it had come towards there, and you could see this going above there. So you can see that over time, this has dipped into the safety stock on a number of times, but that's okay, because that's the whole point of having the safety stock there. Generally, this product has sort of sat in the middle of the yellow zone with its inventory, which is correct. And, you can then have a look at the buffer itself. And this is where this really sort of brings it home. This is the size of the red zone. So 23,000 units are in safety stock. 19,000 units are the yellow zone, or the lead time times the average daily usage of the product, or forecasted usage. And then you've got about a similar size for the MOQ. What's great is it actually then shows you what your ideal stock on hand is, or your expected inventory should be about 33,000. By the way, that is the red zone and half of the green zone, that number there. You can see your current on hand today. So we've got plenty of stock. And in fact, our net flow is actually above the buffer. So we've got plenty of stock for that item. So that's something to actually look out for as well. The final thing we can look at here is also, and this may not apply in your business, but if you have items with bill of materials parts, let's have a look at one. What the system will actually do is take you through and show you how those bill of materials are building and sizing. So if we go into the bill of material tab within an item, first of all, we can see that this item here, has a lead time or a longest leg of 74 days. You can see there. You can see the longest leg, apologies, is 7 days there for this particular item. these items make up this item. And you can see there with the 7 days, this item itself takes 81 days to manufacture, 74 days to manufacture itself, plus the 7 days of its longest leg of items. Everything else is buffered in here. What's great is you can actually break this down and see all the different items that make up this one item, which is really important. And then we can click into the availability review and we can see the subparts within this item and how they're tracking, if they have any shortages that may cause problems with our item in the end. One final part of the system to have a look at is the what we would call the part transition. So this is really important where you are in a situation where your categories, you have item substitutions basically. So you can see here that we have a target part and a source part. We can add our sales together. We can link the net flow. We can even have a conversion ratio to say, you know, make the second item have X number of times more than the first item. So we have that ability to link parts together so that you're only ordering from the source part, but you're using the information and the sales as well as from the target part. So you have that information ready at hand. So that's a quick roundup of materials planning and how it operates. Some key takeaways here. The first thing is that when you jump straight in, actually we'll go to the dashboard to start off with. When you jump straight in, you're given a quick view of what is going to happen in terms of what needs to be ordered, where you may be overstocked, where you're going to have alerts creeping up, and where there are things you need to watch out about. Straight there, automatically delivered every day when you start work. Then you can click into your Workbench here, and straight away you can just have your favorite view and see straight away what items are critical to be ordered, how much is going to be ordered of those items, and you can literally press a button and get those ordered. Or as I've shown, you can delve into the items to kind of work out what is causing some of these issues, or if you need to make any tweaks or adjustments along the way.